In the darkness of big cities, in forgotten corners and lonely corridors, there are stories of those who committed the most atrocious crimes and were never caught. Today, we'll explore cases of serial killers who, to this day, remain a mystery. Who were these monsters lurking in the shadows, and how did they evade justice? Join us as we uncover the tales of these killers who remain ghosts in history. Let's start with one of the most chilling names, the Zodiac Killer. Section 1. The Zodiac Killer. The Zodiac Killer terrorized San Francisco and the surrounding areas in the 1960s and 70s. This killer not only brutally attacked his victims, but also sent letters and encrypted messages to newspapers, taunting the police and the entire country. His first documented murder occurred in 1968, when he shot two teenagers in a parked car. Then he went on to attack more people, growing bolder each time and leaving cryptic messages, some of which remain unsolved to this day. Despite intense investigations and a list of suspects, the Zodiac was never captured. Several suspects were considered, but none could be conclusively linked. In 2020, a team of cryptographers managed to decipher one of his most complex letters, but it didn't reveal any clues about his identity. His case remains one of the greatest mysteries in criminology. Section 2. Jack the Ripper. We now move to Victorian London in 1888. In the dark alleys of Whitechapel, a killer known as Jack the Ripper left a trail of horror. His victims were mostly women living in poverty, and their bodies showed signs of extreme mutilation. Jack seemed to have anatomical knowledge, leading some to suspect he might have been a doctor or surgeon. With each murder, the press and the police attempted to solve the case, but Jack always seemed one step ahead. Over the years, numerous suspects have been considered, including doctors, actors, and even members of the royal family. However, his identity remains a mystery. To this day, Jack the Ripper is one of the most legendary and infamous killers in history. Section 3. The Long Island Serial Killer, Lisk. We moved to New York in the 2000s, when the Long Island Serial Killer, or Lisk, began to attract attention. This killer primarily targeted young women and left their bodies near the Long Island Highway, in swampy and wooded areas. Police discovered the remains of at least 10 victims over the course of several years. Despite the intense efforts of investigators, the Long Island serial killer was never identified. Psychological profiles suggest he could be a man familiar with the area, perhaps someone from the same community. Though the investigation remains open, the killer has vanished, leaving only a series of unresolved bodies in his wake. Section 4. The Cleveland Torso Murderer. In the 1930s, in Cleveland, Ohio, a different kind of killer emerged, one that has come to be known as the Cleveland Torso Murderer. This criminal dismembered his victims, leaving their torsos and limbs scattered around the city. The victims, who were mostly homeless individuals, were difficult to identify. Despite efforts led even by Eliot Ness, the famed agent who brought down Al Capone, they never managed to catch him. Many believe the killer was someone with anatomical knowledge, possibly a doctor. But despite various theories, the Cleveland Torso Murderer was never caught. Section 5. The Hinterkaifeck Killer. Last but no less disturbing, we have the case of Hinterkaifeck, a chilling murder that took place on a remote farm in Germany in 1922. The Gruber family and their maid were brutally killed with a pickaxe. The most unsettling detail is that, before the crime, the family had heard strange noises in the house and found mysterious footprints outside. The killer, who stayed in the house for days after the crime, was never caught. Local residents lived in fear, and to this day no one knows who committed this horrendous act. Some believe it could have been a family member, while others think it was a stranger. Despite investigations and numerous theories, Hinterkaifeck remains an unsolved case.